Well, we're now also joined by Ava Santina from PoliticsJoe and the Spectator's Freddie Gray. Let's start with that story, shall we, Freddie? Because Humza Yousaf, as we were saying there, he jumped before he was pushed. I think he ended the coalition. I think he thought it was showing great leadership. He said, I'm showing great leadership when he did this. And then as the day progressed, he realised that maybe things weren't quite as bright and rosy as he first thought. And now there is a vote of no confidence.
Well, he's quite a disastrous figure, Humza. And I think he has been since he took over. But I think an aspect of the story that people don't really talk about is that the SNP are similar to the Tories in a way, in the sense that they've been in power for a very long time, and when a government's been in power for a long time, people just start to go off them, and there's nothing really you can do about that. And that, in a way, is a sign of a healthy democracy, which perhaps it wasn't in the time of Sturgeon, where it did feel like a one-party state.
Well, she almost had a cult-like status, didn't she, Ava? And it didn't matter what she did. It's been far harder for Humza Yousaf, but ultimately, he's created this himself. He's got in there and he's said, I'm pulling out of this before he gets pushed. He's jumped before he's been pushed. Could that plan ultimately backfire now for him?
I mean, well, because it's in the hands of Regan, who he was quite rude to, actually,
yes.
I think, in the latter parts
well, I mean, he said not a great loss
coalition.
when she went.
Yes, he did. And also they've got this huge
words
row.
he may now be living to regret.
Absolutely. So they've got this huge, you know, this huge row. That the undercurrent of this is, of course, the gender ideology row that they've been having for the past couple of years. So back when Nicola Sturgeon was trying to rush through this this change to the Equality Act that didn't end up going through. But Regan, of course, is sort of, I was going to call her a fundamentalist. She's not. She's just very, very Christian, and she was very anti this legislation. So it's likely in the sort of list of demands that she's rung up for Humza Yousaf this morning. First on that list will probably be, we're not going to talk about gender ideology anymore.
Really interesting. Shall we talk about immigration and Chris Felb? This appearance last night on BBC Question Time, where I think it happens to most politicians, where you go blank and then you scrabble around and you look like a rabbit in headlights. Just before I ask you for your thoughts on
before
that.
I go blank.
Before you go blank, let's have a look at what happened.
No, I think there's an exclusion on people from Rwanda being sent to Rwanda.
They're not from Rwanda, they're from Congo.
They're from Congo.
And they're supposedly
from Congo.
They're supposedly warring these people from Rwanda if they came here on a crossing.
From
Congo. Yeah.
Would people be sent from... Well, I mean, Rwanda is a different country of Congo, isn't it? It's a different country.
Yes.
It is.
Yes, definitely. He's saying if they come from a war zone in Congo, would they then be sent to Rwanda?
That's outstanding, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, what a clip. You couldn't write it.
But you can see how that happened, and he was scrabbling around furiously trying to work out whether they were actually different countries. But also, if it's the flagship policy of a government, surely you should know where these countries are if you're deporting people to them.
He should be across the detail, yes. But the problem is the Rwanda plan is an absurdity. It's an abstraction. It doesn't really exist in reality yet. And so when ministers talk about it, they do start to sound ridiculous because nobody's really thought about how it's going to work properly. It's just a sort of hope that it will put off crossings, migrant crossings. That's the hope, but nobody knows whether it's a reality.
And the fundamental point of the question being asked by the audience member was that these two countries are at war. What happens to someone from the Congo? Can you be deported to Rwanda, at which you're in a terrible position?
Yeah, well, Freddie's bang on that there is actually not a lot of the policy has actually been written down or hashed out yet. So the illegal immigration minister who was on the broadcast rounds the day after this Rwanda bill went through, he basically just said that, like, you know, look, we've only just got the bill through. We're not quite sure. We're still working.
Well, they've had long enough.
Well, yeah.
2 years.
So, you know, he couldn't give an answer of who's getting put on the plane, what airline is going to take them there. And he just sort of said, like, you know, we'll work it out. We're not there yet.
Details.
And, you know, Chris Philp, to his credit, he gave it a go. He wasn't sure, and he tried his best.
he did try his best, definitely.
One tick for effort.
I was once in Rwanda, and the hotel we were in got sort of briefly taken over by Congolese soldiers.
Right.
Yeah, that's my story.
Thanks for the anecdote.
Yeah.
The Daily Telegraph front page. What do you make of this? Rwanda threat is pouring migrants into Ireland. This is Michael Martin said the bill was already impacting on Ireland as people were fearful of staying in the United Kingdom. Now, if that is the case, the government will say, whoopee-doo. Actually, the Safety of Rwanda bill is already paying dividends.
Proof that the concept works. And it might work. We just don't know yet. I mean, if that's happening, then I suppose it is proof that it works. But I'm just not sure it's a deterrent in the way that the government thinks it is.
What about this idea that the last in should be the first out? Someone mooted that on the Weekend show. And in many ways, wouldn't that be a deterrent? So that actually, if you come here as the last people into this country, you're the first out, you're put in Rwanda, your asylum claim is processed in Rwanda.
Well, I don't really know how the comms work on, on the Calais camps, but I'm pretty sure that sort of rhetoric wouldn't actually permeate. I think if you are someone who is quite desperate and you're camping out on the beaches of Dunkirk and you're waiting to get into a boat, I highly doubt that our press is making its way there. So the argument that it's a deterrent and people are really thinking about this, like last in, first out, I just can't see it. I can't see that cutting through. Also the problem that you've got now as well is that there's been an uptick in the number of women and children who've been getting onto these boats, and actually a large number of children. There have been sort of 7, 8-year-old girls found on these boats.
This week.
And a death of a child, absolutely. And so, and actually a couple of weeks ago as well, there was a 7-year-old girl who died. The problem that you've got is you can't deport those children. So, are you going to apply that logic to them? You can't put a 7-year-old child on a plane to Rwanda by themselves.
No, you can't.
As we head towards local elections, the general election, we're going to see all sorts of social media content coming out from our politicians. We've had some this week. The Prime Minister out for a jog with hardest geezer, Ava. What's the thinking
Do you know, I actually thought he came across all right during that, I think I wasn't too sure about the camera work, a bit shoddy camera work, but this is like
Well, they are running, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose, but the cameraman shouldn't be. The cameraman, anyway.
Well, he's got to run, hasn't he?
He's got to keep
He could be on a pulley. Come on,
Yeah,
we're in
could be.
telly
Oh, I see here, shoddy
We're
camera
in
work
telly,
here, yeah.
aren't we? We should know this. No, look, I actually think he comes across quite well here, and he keeps up with him very well. The Chancellor wasn't quite as good at running.
No.
If you remember, Jeremy Hunt during the marathon, he had quite a long running time.
It's
Well,
always
what about
Boris
Boris
Johnson
Johnson?
with
Boris
his bobble
Johnson,
hat on
yeah.
and rather large frame jogging down the streets of London. But you've got Cleverly also doing planks in a suit. So is this how you win an election, is it?
It's all a
doing
bit embarrassing,
exercise?
isn't it? The cringiest geezer.
To be fair
I
to
think-
James Cleverly, it is for charity. His is
Sure.
100 press-ups to raise money for a cancer charity.
I think they're
So-
planks, actually, not press-ups. But
I think they're...
I
don't
think,
think
but I
so.
think it's difficult to tell what's going on.
Yeah.
well, that's
Yeah. I don't know, David. Why don't you give us a demonstration?
Well, very kind of you, but I'll desist just for the moment. But is it just cringe-worthy stuff, or, does it actually speak to the public in a different way?
Well, with Rishi Sunak, I think the people around him are very surprised at how unpopular he is with the public, because they always say, oh, he's such a nice guy, he's just this lovely guy. So they're desperate to try and show this lovely side to him. But I think he just annoys people. People find his voice annoying. And even in these sort of sweet clips, which you can't really get wrong, I don't think, as a politician.
Fit to lead, here we are. That's what it's
very
saying,
good.
isn't
Fit
it?
to lead.
Yeah.
I don't know. He looked a little bit out of breath, didn't he, towards the end? I think there was some careful cutting there,
to be
wasn't
fair,
there?
this guy did run the length of Africa.
Yeah.
You're not going to
Yes,
beat
he
him,
did.
are you? Can we talk about Labour and their policies and renationalisation of the railways? How does that play? I mean, it's a great soundbite. There's very little detail in this, particularly how much it will cost. And when Labour is pushed saying, well, does that mean actually that the whoppingly expensive fares come down? They can't guarantee it.
Yeah, of course, it was Labour who first actually set the pricing back in 2004. So actually they're responsible originally for the increases that we've seen every single year. And those increases are actually set by the government. That's that's a national. It's not actually set by individual operators. But look, this plan, in principle, is great. You've got many train operators at the moment who are actually under government control. So it does actually make sense to bring everything under the government umbrella. However, it really does fall short. And if you've still got parts of it that are being leased out to Europe. You've still got parts of it where a lot of the money is being divvied out to big banks and profits are being given to shareholders. It's not going to work, and it's going to be more expensive than the system that we have now.
We're going to have Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves out today meeting a family who've been hit by the cost of living crisis. Labour's big push that we can be trusted on the economy.
Well, the polls increasingly show that they are trusted on the economy. And I think as far as nationalising the railways, Labour are in this great position of being an opposition with a huge advantage in the polls, who can just throw out policy ideas, see if they stick, and then if in the government they think that there's enough backing for it, they might pursue it. But at the moment, it's just scattergun. They can just, you just announce a policy. People will forget all about it if they don't.
I'm not sure that people are forgetting all about it, though, are they? I mean, I think that he hasn't quite had hasn't quite had the same grace that's been afforded to the Conservatives over the past couple of years, who've actually proposed bills that haven't followed through. You know, Keir Starmer, every single thing that he's talked about, I mean, toothbrushing for children, I mean, I don't think that's ever going to be forgotten. Green energy pledge, we're still chastising him for it. You know, everything does seem to really stick to him.
Is there not an argument to say that as we approach the general election, they should be legally binding contracts, these policy documents from the parties? Because actually, you can sure give a manifesto, but basically you vote on it and then they throw it in the bin.
Well, quite. I mean, it's not a bad idea.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh,
You've
there we
solved
are.
it then.
I've solved that then. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed to both of you,
Thank
Ava
you.
Santina from PoliticsJoe and Freddie Gray from The Spectator.